All right, so we're running, we're ready, and we're good to go. All right, so First Thought Wrong. Welcome everyone to this edition of First Thought Wrong, and this is uh, this is a long time coming. And today we're going to be talking to Brian and hearing a lot more about Brian's story. And it's cool because we're doing this. You and I weren't the greatest of friends. Just a few months ago, and over the past few months, working closely together, we've formed a bond, and it's been awesome. And I know a lot more about you. So
Yeah.
with that, I mean, I look forward. I got some questions for you, and this is gonna be great. So let's start. Let's start. How long have you been sober? Well, tell us where you grew up, where you came from, what your drugs of choice were, and how long you've been sober now.
All right. I want to give exacts. So let me see. Um, my name is Brian. I grew up in Crown Point, Indiana. And as of today, I have 2 years, 4 months, and 28 days clean and sober.
2 years, 4 months, 28 days, clean and sober.
Yep.
That's phenomenal. And so tell us about your childhood. Talk about when growing up as little Brian.
Uh, so little Brian, his childhood was rough. It was shaky. I was born to my father, Bob, who was a DEA task force member, and he was the lieutenant of our local county drug task force. And my mother was a using drug addict who sold drugs for a powerful motorcycle organization. She ran with some rough crowds. So, childhood, my dad being on one side of the law, my mom being on the other side. Um, their marriage didn't last long. A lot of arguments, a lot of fights. One of my earliest childhood memories is, my mother stabbing my father in the chest. And it didn't get much better from there. We'll say that. They split up, and I was back and forth between the two homes. Most of the time, full time, I lived in Crown Point. Part time, I grew up in Hammond, right on the state line of Cal City and Hammond. And, no matter where I went, I never felt like I fit. Um, being in Hammond in that neighborhood, I was the only kid that looked like me. You know, they thought I was the rich kid because I was from Crown Point, and I wasn't. We weren't rich at all. My dad raised four kids on his own, and in Crown Point, I was the poor kid. You know, and it wasn't a good experience. I had a lot of insecurities, a lot of fear, a lot of self doubt, a lot of self hatred, and even in my own household, because my three older siblings, my dad was in the Air Force, and he met their mom in Korea. So my three siblings are Korean. So even in my own household, I didn't look like the people I lived with. So I never felt like I fit. And, I chose moving through and growing up, and I played sports, and I did all the things that, you would think a happy kid would be doing, but I had that empty hole inside my chest where I never felt good enough. And so I started hanging out with people that were getting into trouble, that came from broken homes themselves. I surrounded myself with people, and some people through, and even surrounded myself with people that I thought were less than me, so that I didn't feel so bad about myself.
That's like attracts like, right? And I think in a world where we are all suffering mentally, we've got this whole the mental health phenomenon, which wasn't around when we were kids. I mean, I don't remember people talking about depression and anxiety in the 80s, They just did a lot of cocaine. you know,
Yeah.
and it's the people that we hang around, it's the things that we're around, and that's what we wind up doing. And it's I also, you were talking about, how the different people saw you in different classes. And it's amazing how the perceptions of others are going to influence us. And, in one way where we're looked down on, and another way we're looked up, and that's going to affect our mental well-being. It's going to affect everything. It's going to affect the decisions that we make. And, I can relate to everything that you're saying, except my mom never stabbed my dad.
Yeah.
So but that, the and it's important to look at the childhood, because what we grew up in and things that happen to us are eventually going to make up our character. And all right, so you started hanging out with the wrong crowd, and then you got into high school, and what happened then?
Well, you know, when I think of school days, even before high school, like fitting in is a big deal. Keeping up with the Joneses, and no matter what I tried, I just couldn't do it. And I started smoking weed at 12 years old. I was in sixth grade. I ditched school with a buddy of mine to go meet two eighth grade girls. Thought we were cool. This is awesome. We're the men. And that was my first encounter with a narcotic. Um, really didn't catch hold of me. Didn't really care for it. Moving into high school, of course, still got to fit in, right? Still trying to do whatever it took to fit in. And I discovered some other substances. And when I discovered the next few substances, I felt I had arrived in life. And of course, initially, it didn't start off as addiction. It started off as I want to fit in. I want to be cool. I want to be liked. I want to be accepted. And what I didn't realize, those first couple uses of each of those substances, I knew I liked them, but I didn't know why.
All right, let's get real here. Quit saying substances. Fucking tell me what you're doing.
Yeah.
You started out and drinking, like the rest of us.
Drinking marijuana.
Drinking, then smoking weed.
I started dating older girl. I was 16, she was 20. And that was the first time I tried ecstasy.
Ecstasy.
I was like, yes, absolutely. I want this all day, every day for the rest of my life because it feels good. I can be in touch with my emotions. I can cry. I can do all these things that I was so scared to do because of what other people thought. I thought this was the cure for Brian to actually be himself. And, I used like an addict for on the weekends starting out. And then, that substance got me a job or made me attracted to the dance club lifestyle, right? So I got a job bouncing at a dance club. I was security. And that night, this specific night, I was assigned to the parking lot. It was cold, December. I was in the parking lot, still 16. The guy I was working with in the parking lot was like 20, 21. And he said, let's go sit in the car. It's cold out here. He pulled out some cocaine for the first time. Of course, like I want to be cool like this older guy, right? And I'm sure. So I did it and I was like, oh man. And this shows how immature I was in my mind. I said, like I said, it's cold out. It's December. The next statement out of my mouth was, I can't wait till I get all my Christmas money. I'm spending it all on this stuff. That tells you right there. And then fast forward a couple more years, stumbled upon opiates, pain pills, and then heroin. And once I found heroin, my first interaction was an accidental use. I thought it was cocaine. Buddy lied to me. Once I did it, I was like, what are you doing? I told you I'd never do heroin because my mom died of a heroin overdose when I was 10 years old. 10 minutes later, once that heroin took effect and I felt the high from it, I hit the ground running for a long time. I was, let's say, active addiction for a total of 25 years. 20 of those years was as an IV heroin addict.
You see, this is something that and thank you for your honesty. And I know it going to meetings and stuff like that, you try to kind of stifle exactly what things are.
Yeah.
But for this in particular, you know, I want to be specific, and we want to actually get down to kind of, and not, I mean, we're not solving any problems of the world, but we want to
Right.
look at root causes. And this is addiction is a progressive disease, and we start with one thing and we advance to the next thing and advance to the next thing. You know, nobody starts out as a bank robber.
No.
Nobody starts out as a bank robber. You steal something when you're a kid, you get away with it, and the butterflies in your stomach, the guilt, the shame, the remorse, the next time you do it, it's a little less.
Yeah.
It's a little less. It's a little less. And to where you're stealing and you're not feeling anything. And
Well,
it's the same thing.
it becomes from my experience, right? Because that's all I've got. That's all I can speak to. My experience was with stealing. Um, it was a high in itself. You know, it was a high. It was the excitement, the rush, the the adrenaline. You know, the dopamine burst that I got when I got away, or I came up, right? Because, like I said, I grew up not well off. I stole clothes to fit. I stole, and that's where it began before the addiction, but it became an addiction all in its own. So
You know, anything that helps us to release endorphins and, you know, get that wave of excitement is we're going to keep doing it,
yeah,
especially if there's no consequences. We don't You steal, you don't get caught, you get that rush. All right, I'm going to do it again. You know, it goes that way for all the things. Gambling, you know, you go to the boat, you hit a blackjack hand, and yes, I want that feeling again. You know, and it's for everything. You know, anything that, and I mean, not. I can only speak for myself. You know, who as an alcoholic and drug addict, and I can get addicted to anything. It's that's the stuff we have to focus on, and we have to know that it's this progressive thing that allowed us to make bad decisions easier, and because we knew the consequences, we knew that it was going to make us feel good, and so we kept doing it and we kept doing it, and until it takes over.
for a kid like me that was deeply insecure, um, had deep self hatred from a young age, had a lot of responsibility that a child shouldn't have. Those feelings were like, those were the first things, first moments, the first experiences that made me feel okay in my own fucking skin. And it was like, that's the feeling I had been searching for. Not the high that I got, but the feeling of being okay is what I searched for a long fucking time. And that's what drugs gave me. Even though it was an illusion, it was temporary, it was fleeting.
You were accepted. You were accepted by this new community and by
Yeah.
older kids, by older people.
Yeah.
It's and you were accepted by the people that you wanted to be accepted by at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it didn't last long, you know. And then it made all of those feelings, all of those things that I was running from or hiding or trying to wear a mask to pretend I was somebody that I wasn't. It intensified all of it and made it, and that's where the cycle of addiction comes in, right? Because it's temporary relief, but then it makes it worse. So then I got to do more to get that feeling, but I never get that feeling. I think that's why people say, like, you're always chasing that first high. You'll never get it back, you know. And it's not the feeling of the substance. It's the feeling of, okay, I am okay. I can deal with life. I'm going to be funnier, or smarter, better looking, or easier to talk to girls, or a better employer, whatever the illusion that I created in my own mind, and that's just been my experience. But fast forward and, grateful to be clean today.
All right, so let's talk. I want to talk about heroin.
Yeah.
And how long were you addicted to heroin?
About 20 years. 20 years.
So I've never done heroin. I've worked with a lot of people that have been addicted to heroin, but to not know what it, is and does, I'm operating in the blind. I know about addiction. I know I've seen train spotting.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, what was, and we hear it, chasing that first high.
Hmm.
Give me a first person take on what that first heroin high was like, or maybe it was your second one because the first one was kind of an accident, and the first time you mainlined.
Yeah. Huh.
And I know it's a tough question, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, and I don't want to make you emotional, but for the purposes of education.
Um, so it's crazy because, like, for me, not all people, but a lot of people can, um, to see that we call it a mushroom cloud of blood
That's
that's
when the
so
blood gets sucked into the needle, and
correct.
then you push it back in.
And like right there, it starts because that you're about to feel the feeling that you're looking for. And, once it's ingested, um, I would get this warm rush all over my body. And then I would feel it creep up from my stomach into my throat and I would taste it. You could taste the heroin because heroin's very vinegary smelling, tasting. And I could feel it coming up. And like once it comes up, you know, like you're there. You're about to be exactly where you want to be. Like I talked about, that okayness with one. I'm okay in my own skin. And what I've described it as a lot of times is you've been to the hospital, right?
Hmm.
You're cold in the hospital, and the nurse brings you that warm blanket to wrap around yourself out of the dryer. And you wrap it around, you're like, ah, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what it is. Put that warm blanket around yourself, and everything's going to be okay. Doesn't matter what's going on in the world, everything is going to be okay. People could be shooting right there next to me, shooting at me. I'm like, I'm good.
So it takes every care out of the world, and you only thing that you're thinking about is the floating light feeling of joy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what happens next? What happens next? How long does that last?
The taste in that warm blanket doesn't last long. Um, Couple seconds, 20 seconds, I don't know, something like that. But you know, then some people, depending on their tolerance or whatever, fall asleep or they're just, drowsy. Other people, it gives them energy. And for me, at times it made me drowsy, but most of the time it gave me energy. Like, okay, I can go clean the house and I can take care of my daily responsibilities. I can face the world. I can go out into the world as Brian and be okay and do whatever I need to do, whether it's go to work or go pay bills or, have a conversation with a stranger.
So so you come down after 20, 30 seconds, and how long until you just can't live without that feeling again? What's your time frame?
Um, oh, not long. Um, I used to buy large amounts, right? And I'd be like, this is going to last me 2, 3, 4, or 5 days. Or I'm going to go out of town. I'm going to have enough to get through the trip or whatever it was. Or I'm going to have enough to get to work in the morning. And it never lasts. Ever. I would say 20 minutes. I want another one. Sometimes even sooner than that. Because, like I said, you're always chasing that rush, that feeling. And it's never the same. You never duplicate it. It's just failed attempt after failed attempt to reach that first one. So you're always trying. It's going to be different. The next one's going to be the one that gets me
Now, how long is it until, and a lot of people have heard the term dope stick, how long after you start using heroin until you get that, because eventually it becomes kind of maintenance.
there. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and you're just doing it not to get sick. How long is it in between from when you start until you get, you know, hooked on heroin and you need to have it just to not get sick? You're not chasing a high anymore. You're chasing not getting sick.
For me, again, I didn't know what dope sick was. When I first started, I could spend $10 and two of us could get high for 4 days on a $10 bag because you can only do a tiny amount or you'll die. And like at the time, I was making really good money. So I don't know how long it took because I just had the money for it. Maybe a couple weeks till I realized like I didn't have it, couldn't get it that day or whatever. And I felt like shit. And somebody was like, dude, I think I got the flu. And they're like, no, you're dope sick. And I'm like, what do you mean dope sick? What's that? I had no clue what it was until the first time I had experienced it. And then somebody that knew told me. And I was like, oh, fuck. Well, got to make sure I don't run out of money now because I got to have this at all times. And, going through my addiction over the years, I could do, depending, but, at the worst times, 8 hours without doing it, I would get sick. A lot of times it's about 24 hours if you haven't done it in 24 hours. Again, potency, cut, all the stuff. You know what I mean? But 8 to 24 hours, if you don't do it, you're getting sick.
And that's after like been on it for a year, or is that after
That could be
immediately?
a week.
Immediately, there's
If I did heroin for a week straight and then I just stopped, I'm addicted physically. There's definitely mental dependence, but physical dependence as well.
See, now the most people don't realize that addiction is an allergy. Our body is allergic to drugs and alcohol, and it's 72 hours is the physical craving. For 72 hours, my body physically wants it, whether it's alcohol, drugs, you name it. It's that physical craving. That's why I'm asking these questions: is how long it takes to get there. And so the physical craving, 72 hours after that, it becomes the mental obsession. But when you're physically getting sick and have to have your medicine to feel better, that's a whole different level of physical craving.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy because you know how many times I said I'm going to stop. I'm done. I've had enough. And I could make it 3-4 days without heroin. And that fourth day, I cave and I go back to get one more, right? Because the mental, I may not feel as bad day 4. You're getting better slowly each day. You still feel like shit, but you're getting a little better. But it's that mental obsession, and I can think my way into dope sickness, because I obsess about it. And I'm gonna feel this and I'm gonna feel that I talk my body into feeling those things so that I go get one more. And that was my experience, my entire addiction.
And that's probably easy to do, considering, I mean, your body's been in a state of sickness for 20 years.
Yeah.
And you've got occasional, openings of okay, I want to get sober. And you probably wanted to get sober 10,000 times, but you'd actually give it that go for 3 days. But your mind is so used to being sick that you can make yourself, just feel sick.
Yeah. Did it many times, many times. I wanted to quit. The difference was I wasn't willing to do the required work or feel the required experience, right? I say often that I let the fear of 4 days of dope sickness rob me from years of my life, decades at that, you know what I mean? Because I was scared to feel that 4-day void of just pain and acid in my stomach and my throat and the body aches and the anxiety and the fear. I was scared of that so much that it robbed me from 20 years of my life.
Okay, so during the 20 years of heroin addiction, where was your family? What was your dad telling you? What were your siblings telling you? Or were you cut off? What is
moments of all of it. You know what I mean? I had So the first time my dad ever found out, I could tell you where I was. I was sitting in the parking lot of a local topless bar, and my dad called me because two of my friends went by his house and said, "Hey, Brian needs help. He's sick. He's doing drugs." And my dad called me, and I was in the parking lot of that club. And I answered the phone. He's like, "Hey, are you doing drugs?" I was like, "No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Smoke a little weed, you know." And you got to think, my dad was a police officer, a narcotics officer at that, plus a very stern, strict man. I was terrified and was like, how the fuck did he figure this out? Um, I would say a week later, I walked into his house. He was doing dishes, and I couldn't even look at him, but I sat down on the chair at his desk. He was in the kitchen, and I said, "I need help." And he looked at me and said, "What kind of fucking help do you need?" And I couldn't say it. But then I said it, you know, "We'll figure it out," is what he told me. And then through many failed attempts, you know, lots of bullshit and manipulation and lies and stealing and all the things that we do in active addiction that I did. Um, you know, I had moments where my family wouldn't talk to me. I didn't talk to my brother or his wife for a long, long time because, you know, I committed a crime against my own family and they weren't having it. And that was day one. You know, the first time I'd ever got caught for that, or I told them, I said, "I have a problem. I need help." And, you know, they weren't very open minded to the situation. They didn't want the toxicity or the bullshit in their life. So they cut me off pretty quick, immediately. Like, "No, I'm done."
How old were you then?
Um, 27.
27. So it was a few years into your addiction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was a decade plus into the addiction, but that specific substance, I was about 5 years in. But I had a good job, like I told you. I made a lot of money, so I was able to hold it together. They knew something was going on, but they didn't know exactly what.
Dude. We lie so much. The dishonesty. That's the one trait amongst all of us that we all have is the dishonesty. And first, we lie to everybody else to make them think that we're not doing it, that we're doing okay, and simultaneously we're lying to ourselves that says that everything is okay,
Yeah.
that this is normal, and we build this level of normalcy that the 10-year-old us would have been scared to death of, but we do it so much that we make it our own normal. And that's just dishonesty. We're dishonest with ourselves, we're dishonest with everyone else. Everyone knows what we're up to.
Yeah.
I know, I was a bad at it. Everybody knew I was drinking and using drugs and everything. But in my own mind, I was doing a good job of hiding it.
Yeah.
You know, and there's a great line in a Machine Gun Kelly song, and he talks about getting in trouble the first time his dad saw him dance with the devil, and that's what I was thinking about with this questioning. And I've thought about this with you before about what your dad thought. Especially being a law enforcement agent and here's my son addicted to drugs. What do I do? What do I do?
You know, my dad's perspective on it was just fucking quit. Just quit. Just quit. I smoked cigarettes for however many years and I just quit. I threw them away and never picked one up again. You know, so he expected me to operate the same way he did. And, you know, I would try and plead and explain and rationalize and justify. And it was just fucking quit. And I couldn't. Couldn't.
And it's a lot of normal people don't get us because he doesn't have a problem with addiction.
No. I've seen my dad drunk
and
twice in my life.
Normies don't get it.
No.
Normies don't get it. Why can't you just stop? Why can't you just? I had a friend. She was awesome, and she when I was in the horrible stage of my drinking and drugging, she said, "Johnny, just drink with me. Just drink with me." And I did. I tried it. And then I snuck off to the bathroom to do lines when she wasn't looking. Or
Yeah.
I'd sneak down to the other end of the bar to do shots when she wasn't looking. And then I'd come back by her and we'd do shots.
Yeah.
It was you know that, but that's all in normies don't get it, you know. But and which is why I'm so grateful for this conversation, because we have this podcast, and with anybody watches it and can learn this, hey, addiction is a disease. It is, we can't just quit because our body craves it, and it doesn't work that way. It takes a lot of hard work. All right, so let's move forward. Let's talk about the accident. And we've talked about the accident on here before, but you've always kind of like thrown it in and how the accident changed you and this and that. But let's talk about the accident.
Yeah. Let's talk about the accident. What do you want to know?
Give us what happened.
So,
And I know it's hard, and I appreciate your candor on all of this.
so August 10th, 2021. So coming up 4 years ago, the anniversary is coming up. Um, I was with a girl. She had 14 months clean. Was living in a sober living house, and we're gonna live happily ever after, right? Both in recovery, or supposed to be in recovery. I was pretending, lying to everybody. I just got out of treatment and just got off work that day, and she had called me, and she could tell immediately I was high. She knew immediately. And, like I said, I just got out of treatment, so she was ashamed. She was mad. She was hurt. She was all these things. And she told me, I'm coming out there. So she drove out. I was living with my father at the time. She had just moved out of the sober living house and with her mother. And she drove out, and she planned on telling my dad. I was like, you can't do that. You can't do that. I can't do that to him again. And so we're arguing on the phone. She's driving on her way out to get me. And she decided on the way she was going to stop at the liquor store. So she relapsed and threw away 14 months and got extremely intoxicated on the way to build up the courage to do what happened that night. And she sent me her location, like I am on my way. And the location was right down the road from my house. So I hopped in the car and zoomed to the gas station and hopped in her car while she was inside the gas station. She came out. We started arguing, left my car there, and we went on a road, down the road. She drove into my dad's complex, and I'm pleading with her, please don't tell him, arguing back and forth. We got back out on the main road that separates, this stretch of woods and this creek from my father's house. As we're driving down the road arguing, she said, you're going to let a bag full of heroin kill you and take you away from me, and I'm not willing to live without you. So we're both going to die tonight. And she accelerated her car to 65 miles an hour, and she hit a tree next to that creek. And, that was the accident. I was injured badly. I died on scene, was brought back to life. Basically broke everything on my left side. Died a couple more times. Got to the hospital. She was airlifted to Chicago to a trauma center. She had 10 broken bones. And, I was taken to the local hospital, because they knew they needed to work on me immediately. Spent a month in a coma. And when I came out of the coma, I was nuts because, I didn't have my wits about me. I didn't know what happened. Put my family through a great deal. We both survived the accident. Needless to say, I'm sitting here. But fast forward to the day I got out of the hospital, we both thought using drugs at that point was a good idea or was okay or acceptable because we both got all these injuries. We're both on pain meds. We're both on all this substance already through a doctor because of our injuries. So it's okay to do heroin because that's our drug of choice, both of ours. And um,
Okay, so this was the accident was in August. You're in the hospital. You die a few times and were brought back to life, and you were in a coma for 21 days, and the left side of your body doesn't work. You get out of the hospital September, and your first thought wrong
yeah,
is to go and do more drugs.
go and do more drugs.
And see, this is the level of insanity that we talk about in the program, and the second step, and in most, I think it's in all programs, the second step's the same thing, that came to believe the power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And when we talk about that word sanity, that's the insanity, that's the thinking that says, uh, I just almost died. I died
Okay.
multiple times. I've put my family through the worst hell that they could ever have gone through, and I choose drugs. That's the insanity, because, and it's not. I mean, your story is a very drastic story of dying and everything. I didn't die. I
Yeah.
just kept going to jail. I kept, you know, I was telling my daughter the story of the first time I got arrested. And I got arrested. My mom picked me up from the drunk tank in a blackout, and then on halfway home, I jumped out of her car and got arrested again. I got arrested twice in one night. The first time I got arrested, and but I didn't wake up in jail. I woke up strapped to a gurney,
Yeah.
and I was still a teenager. And my first thought was, I'd go back out and drink some more. I must have done it wrong that time. I can fix it next time. I'll control it next time. I'll do this. I'll do that. And it was me lying to myself. But
Yeah.
that's the insanity. It's all the insanity of alcoholism. And this is another thing that normies just don't understand. They don't
No clue.
understand that my body, my brain says, go do drugs and alcohol, because that will make everything better.
Yeah.
Okay, so September, you're out of your coma. Half of your body doesn't work. You decide you're going to do drugs again. Then what happened?
I woke up and she didn't. She passed away. Um, I woke up, she was deceased on top of me. And, she had been deceased so long that she was stiff. So I had to kind of, you know, and again, half my body broken. That wasn't an easy task. And I had to go get her mother and tell her, hey, I need help. Can't wake Natalie up. And, you know, discovered her that way. Police, ambulance, coroner all come take her away. Try to revive her, take her away once they can't. And again, first thought wrong, right? My best idea, because I've still got that substance that I found next to her bed. Still got it. Now I'm hurting mentally. It's a good idea to kill that pain, right? So I went into the bathroom. Well, I don't know, by this point, 10, 12 grieving family members in the driveway, grieving the loss of their loved one. So I sneak off to the bathroom, do one more, right? And by the time I made it to the driveway from the restroom, I fall out myself, deceased. And the same ambulance, the same police officers that were just there 10, 20 minutes ago for her had to come back for me. They were able to bring me back, obviously, and yeah.
In your 20-year heroin addiction, how many times did you overdose?
Once.
Just that once in that September. I mean, a lot of people the stories are, that they OD, they get brought back on from Narcan, they OD again, they get brought back again, and they just keep doing it. It's a vicious cycle.
Well, it was different for me, right? I'm a smart drug addict.
Oh yeah.
I'm a good heroin addict. Like seriously, that's the inner dialogue that I had in my brain. Like, I'm not a dummy. I'm not going to use a whole bag when I get out of rehab and use it again. I'm going to start off small and ease into it. That's what I thought. That's what I believed, and never overdose. So I thought I was untouchable. I thought I was smart. I thought I was a better drug addict than you were. It's crazy.
Okay, so that's your accident was August, September, the OD and the death and so that's 4 years ago, and you've got 2 years sober. So you
Coming
went,
up on 2.5. So I used.
excuse me, and I don't mean to take
No, no,
anything
no,
away
no.
from you. I'm
But I
I'm
used for another
so
year and a
proud
half.
of you. I can't. Don't ever let me not know.
Yeah,
I know. I know you
yeah.
know, but
Yeah.
I'm just trying to keep the timeline. So so she died, then you died again. You know, you've died like 15 times in your life by now, and what did you choose next?
Heroin.
More heroin.
More heroin. More. Now. For another year and a half. You would have thought many instances in my life would have been enough to stop. For me to be like, I've had enough pain. I've had enough death. Had enough incarceration. But addiction strong, and I was stuck. I was stuck inside here because I couldn't express the fact that I needed help, and I couldn't. Not that I couldn't. I wasn't willing to address the true reasons that were at the root of my use. I couldn't vocalize it to another human being. I was scared, I was ashamed, I was embarrassed, and I wasn't willing to talk about those things. So those things were my downfall because, they paralyzed me for a long time. And once I became willing to talk about them with another human being, my life got better. Didn't get easier overnight. It took a lot of work. Still takes a lot of work.
Well, let's talk. Hang on. Let's talk about why and how you finally made that decision. I mean, to get clean finally, 2.5 years ago. What was it that happened that set you on a different path?
So the girlfriend I have now, after the one that passed away, she placed some boundaries in my life many times, but like, the good addict I am, I'm smarter, I'm good at manipulation. It's, she's not going to follow these boundaries, and I'm going to continue my poor behavior and be okay. And that wasn't the case. She had told me, she had caught me before. She said, if you keep using, I am done. We're living with her father. And, she caught me again. And she said, get the fuck out. And, she was supporting me. All the clothes I was wearing on my body were purchased by her. The shoes on my feet she had purchased because I was in active addiction. I wasn't paying for nothing but drugs. And, again, we lived with her father. Her dad was sitting in the recliner right there in the living room watching TV. And she told me, take it all off, all of it. So I undressed right there in the living room, did the walk of shame out of his house to my van in the rain with not much on. And, the thought I had was, of course, embarrassment and shame. But it was like, you're going to let the one person that accepted you broken. Probably the person you prayed most of your life for, somebody to love you for who you were and not try and change you, you're going to lose that over a bag of dope. So by the time I made it to my vehicle, her dad lived on the second house on the street. So I had to drive 2 houses to the stop sign. By the time I made it from that second house to the stop sign, I had called the treatment center and set up transport for treatment that next morning at 8 o'clock.
So livers, lawyers, and lovers. That's
Yep.
what usually gets people clean or gets people sober. Livers, lawyers, and lovers, and you fall into that category, and that's amazing. And I know your girlfriend, and she is an amazing, amazing person. And so okay, how many times did you go to treatment before this time?
A total of 16. So 15 before the time that actually changed.
So 16 different treatment centers. And then in the 16th time is the time that has stuck. What was the most clean time you had after treatment on those other 15 occasions? And I'm gonna put a caveat. That's excessive. He went to recovery treatment an excessive amount of times.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not judging.
Yeah, it's cool. I judge myself too. I wish it was different, but it's not. It's the truth. It's what it is. I would say max. Well, I mean, incarceration counts, right? I would say 2.5 years, but that was incarceration, and then 90 days in treatment plus 17 months of house arrest. So it was all, I had the law checking on me. The day I got off house arrest and was a free man, I went to a very rough bar that night and almost got shot because I don't know how to fucking act. It wasn't legitimate clean time or recovery time or sober time or whatever you want to call it. It was forced. I didn't want to be clean.
Okay, so now you're in your 16th treatment and your girlfriend had given up on you, but you're going this time and you've got a different mindset. What did you do different? What happened? Why did it stick this time?
I became willing. To do like I talked about. I became willing to talk about the things that I didn't want to talk about, that I thought, I was scared to share some things, because if I tell you the truth about me, you're going to leave like everybody else did. If I tell you the truth and expose myself and get vulnerable, you're going to leave. Everybody's always left. And, at that point, I had nothing left. I had nobody left to leave me, so it was like, what do I got to fucking lose? Let's give this a shot. And a lady that worked at the treatment center, she followed me outside a group one day because I was angry, man. And I was like letting everybody know what I thought and how I'm smarter and better drug addict and all these things. And she tapped me on my shoulder, and I was like, oh, fuck. I'm in trouble. And she said, I see you. I see you. And I looked at her like, what the fuck do you see? You don't know me. She said, I am you. And that next day in group, she decided to tell her story. I was like, I'm a little bitch. Like, this woman, a woman, has survived this and this and this and this and this. And I'm crying about this. There's always somebody that's got it worse. But like I would have told you, it was victim mentality bullshit that allowed me to keep up my poor behavior. In that moment, going forward, there was a couple other experiences, but that was the one that was the pivot move in my life. That was the pivot moment where it's like, all I got to do is change a little bit and I can go a completely different direction.
So you related.
Yeah.
You related with another person's story, and so you get out of treatment and you've got a different mindset, and you've talked about being able to dig deeper and get honest and look at some of these root causes. And I know that you're a very active member of the program. And had you gone and done steps and things like that before?
Or
In any after any of your treatment centers? No.
yeah, menial attempts at best, very menial. I was more social acceptability equals recovery type guy. I'd go to the meetings, I'd hang out, I'd talk, I'd share, I'd hang out with the winners, right? But that was all part of my bullshit. It was all a part of my manipulation. Like, look at the people I'm hanging out with. They got long time clean. They got a long time sober. They've got lives and jobs and all this shit. But like, I wasn't doing no real fucking work. I wasn't, you know, I was hanging out.
See, a lot of people who have never been involved in any of the programs, and not been around addiction, or maybe they just don't know what it's about. When we talk about the work, putting the work in, doing the steps, and actually, because we don't do the steps, we incorporate the steps in our life, and that's what changes us, and that's what affects our decision makings moving forward. And that's the biggest thing, because normies hear us talk about, we put in the work, and this is why it's different this time, and this is why it's different that time. And then you see people that do go in, and then they relapse, or and it's just they didn't put in the work, or they didn't incorporate these steps into their life, and because you work the program, and then the program works you. And that's, and I see this in you, having been sober for as long as I've been sober. I've been the best thing about long-term recovery is watching other people recover now.
Yeah.
And seeing them change, seeing them make different decisions, seeing the whole world, their whole world be different because of it, seeing relationships get back together, seeing, people excel and do well. And, that's the biggest thing. And, something it's, this podcast in particular, that, some people watch who've never been addicted to drugs. This is how they get to know what we actually go through. And people that are in Al-Anon, people that have, family members who are suffering. This is the important message for them. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's important for addicts to know that the help is out there too. And we're two examples of what can happen, not that life is perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better than it used to be.
Sure is.
And so I see the program working in your life. And how many meetings do you go to a week?
Minimum 5, but a lot of weeks 7.
My first 2 years, how many of recovery? I was at a meeting every day for 2 years, and for the next few years, it was still 5 to 7. It slowly started to go down, but even now with 21 years sober, I go to 3+ meetings a week, plus these podcasts, plus live streams, plus all the other things that we do. I do a lot of H&I work, going up and talking at hospitals. That's the most fulfilling thing for me.
Well, everybody I hang out with is in recovery. The people that work on my house, recovery. Like, recovery is my life. It's not like something I do. It's just my life now. Everything I do. And, in the beginning of getting clean, getting sober, I was on my way back from treatment. I went to treatment 4.5 hours from home. I hadn't used my phone in over a month. Turn my phone on, and there it goes. It starts ringing. I'm like, here we go. I answer the phone, and it was a treatment center calling me to offer me a job. And I'm thinking, I need a job really bad. So I'm not going to tell these people I just got out of treatment. And it was a job I didn't even apply for. That was the craziest thing. They sought me out. And then I would say in the beginning, too, that's like one of the things that engulfed me and wrapped me in the warm blanket, like I talked about with the heroin, but in the recovery side. Wrapped me in that warm blanket and said, everything's going to be okay as long as you follow this path. And, they got me my start, I would say. And like now, like I said, everything is recovery. All my people are recovery people. We talked about in the very beginning of the show, you talked about like the people we hang out with. And that pertains to one of my quotes, favorite quotes. Show me who you walk with, and I'll tell you who you are. So I hang out with the winners today. I hang out with people with goals and dreams and aspirations and the willingness to do the work to get all those things. Because all of us can sit around and talk about what we want, but are we willing to put in the work to get it? That's who I hang out with, people like that.
So it's you brought up the warm blanket again, and I kind of had this when you talked about it with when you were describing using before. So when we get to the program, there's an introduction to a higher power, you know, and I fought that tooth and nail, but the program, and I went all the time, and
Yeah.
it became my warm blanket.
Yeah.
It was a safe place for me to go to share. I loved them, I trusted them, and they led me in the right direction until I could, come up with a higher power of my own understanding, which today I call God, and even more than that, today I call Jesus. It's which I've had fear of saying for a while now since I got baptized and all that stuff. It's a fear even saying it right now, but it's the closer I get to my God, my spirituality, the more of that warm blanket I feel. I do yoga now, and
Yeah.
I'm a yogi now. No big deal. Shout out, Fran. The but the spirituality portion of it, just breathing, and that warmth that comes with it, and all the feelings that come with it, having a God that I love and trust, it's absolutely overpowering, amazing. It is that warm blanket now, and that it's like we replace, we
Always.
replace drugs, and we replace alcohol with a higher power, and that's the entirety of the program, the 12 steps that everybody's heard of. Each step is a spiritual experience that inevitably leads to a spiritual awakening, and that spiritual awakening is that relationship, and that relationship being that comforting, because I don't have to do anything alone now,
Right.
and I don't have to sit and think about me all the time. That's the biggest thing.
It's beautiful.
The selfishness, the self-centeredness, the dishonesty, all those things that come along with active addiction, and I mean with non-active addiction. Because I've known people who've come to the program and who didn't want the higher power, didn't get the higher power, and then they don't understand the whole premise of working with others and focusing my time and efforts on others, because I don't have to worry about my own little bullshit.
Bullshit. No.
I don't have to. I don't have to worry about that anymore, because God's got me, and everything's gonna be just the way it's supposed to be, and I can accept that. It's enormous.
Yeah. Doing the next right thing, helping others. It's made my life, like I said, got
Okay,
that job.
let's talk about that. Let's talk about working with others, because that is a big part of your recovery. It's what your job is now.
Yeah.
The Never Alone Recovery. Never Alone Recovery. We help people get into treatment centers. You are manning the phone for Never Alone Recovery. And people in active addiction, people whose family members have loved ones that they don't know what to do with. There's a number. They call that number. They talk to you,
Yep.
and if and there's been multiple times people have reached out to me where they've said, I need help, and I need this, that, and I say, call Brian. Call Brian. And I love how much, and I love watching you help others. I love what you do. Talk about that, and how much that's changed your life.
So, like you just said, it helps me get out of me. My problems seem very small because I've got people that are dealing with a loved one in addiction or them themselves are dealing with addiction. So I get to revisit or see the chaos of what active addiction looks like or feels like, sounds like. So it keeps me connected to the pain where I'm not feeling it myself. And it shows me what I don't want in my life anymore. Um, but the reward of hearing somebody say, "Thank you for helping my child. Thank you. He's a different person today. He loves me. Our relationship is repaired." That gives me joy and it makes me proud of what I do. There's nothing I've ever been proud of in my life. I mean, I've got a couple moments, but like nothing like this where I'm helping others because all the other proud moments are about me, the selfishness of it, right? And these moments are like, I am proud of me for caring about people because I don't care about anybody. So it's very rewarding. Um, it's very rewarding to see people at their brokenness, hopeless and wanting to die at times, um, going to jail all the time. And then, you see them a year later and it's like, man, I changed my life. I've got a job. I get the kids back. My mom loves me again, or I got a key, or I got a car and I built my credit or whatever it is. It's beautiful to be a part of that, to see that because I was in those positions like they were where I never thought it was possible. I never thought I would have a home or a credit or a bank account. To see people change their lives is very rewarding.
Yeah, and Brian, I'm telling you, I'm proud of you. And if
Thank
that
you.
if that makes you feel any better, so 4th of July, I have a big party at my house, and a lot of people come over, and Henry, my son, is asking me who's coming over, and I start rattling off grandma, grandpa, a few names, and he asked me about one person specifically, and he said, "Is Brian coming?" And I said, "Brian who?" And he was talking about you,
Yeah.
and he that's you bring joy, and joy comes to you, and it's amazing, dude, and I love you, and
Love you too.
I'm happy to be doing this stuff with you, the podcasts and the live streams. We're having a good time, and I mean, hopefully we're helping somebody. If not, we're helping each other.
Yeah.
You know, this has been amazing. I thank you for sharing so much. I know it's hard. I know it
Yeah.
hurts. Um, and just appreciate you. Just appreciate you,
Thank you.
and hopefully everyone else does too.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about our sponsor, Never Alone Recovery?
So, Never Alone Recovery, we're a free resource that helps those struggling with addiction. Whether you need treatment, sober living, need mental health resources, we can help you with all of those free of charge. Our addiction hotline, the phone number is 1-855-831-9996. You can also check us out on Facebook at Never Alone Recovery, or you can check us out at neveralonerecovery.com.
Thank you, and thank you for tuning in. And we love you. God loves you, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.